Hello and welcome to the shop. If you make a lot of pins like I do, you probably are going to end up with something like this in your shop. I have made a couple of videos in the past where I've made pin blanks from cutoffs, and that's great. The only issue is I'm only using a handful of the cutoffs, and you can see there's a ton of them here. I have an idea today. If it works, I'm going to be able to really use just a huge amount of these blanks, and I'm going to get rid of them so they're out of my shop, but I'm not throwing them away. I'm not burning them. They're going to get used. The first thing we got to do is we got to sort through and get rid of anything that's already been drilled, has a tube in it, or anything acrylic, because we're not going to work with that today. We're really going to focus on wood blanks or wood cutoffs today. I went through both boxes, and what you're looking at here is all of the wood that does not already have a tube in it, does not have a hole drilled through it, is not acrylic, a piece of bone, or anything else that might be in that box. So this is what we have to work with. I was hoping there'd be a little more, but I think this will be pretty good. Now what we want to do is we're going to start processing this, and let me show you how I'm going to do that. I want to joint two sides on each blank, and I've got my small stock joining jig set up. You can see there are 4 blanks in it. If you look at the blanks, there's just a little bit of a lip on each blank. We're going to go ahead and joint this edge. We'll flip them over, joint a second edge, and then we can begin gluing our blanks together to build our master blank. I just finished jointing all of the pieces in this pile, and I marked the sides as I squared them up. I really wanted to use the pieces in this pile as well, but what I found is they're so small that when they would go through the blade, they would tend to move. I couldn't get a good grip on them, so it actually was a little more dangerous than I thought it would be, so I decided not to mess with these. We're going to have to come up with a separate project for these tiny pieces. I clamped my segmenting sled to my disc sander, and before I start sanding, I went ahead and squared the table with the disc, and then I squared the sled with the disc. Now what I'm going to do is, I've got the 2 marks where I jointed this. We're going to make sure that one of the jointed marks is against the back of the sled and one is against the bottom of the sled. And I'm just going to square both ends of this blank. We'll go ahead and repeat that for all the rest of the blanks and be ready for a glue up. At this point, all of these blanks have been jointed on 2 sides and both ends of the blank have been squared. We're ready now to start our glue up. I think you kind of get the idea of how this glue up is going to go. I'm going to let this sit for about 20 minutes, let the glue tack up, and then we'll continue to add onto each of these 3 sections until we get them around 12 or so inches in length. I may have enough to do 1 or 2 more 12-inch sections like that, and then once the glue fully dries, we will joint one side of each section and glue them together to form a larger block similar to a cutting board. After my glue up, I ended up with 6 roughly 12-inch long sections of blank. What I want to do now is joint one side of each of these sections, and then we'll join 2 of them together at a time to form 3 larger sections. I'm going to go ahead and glue these 6 pieces together at their jointed edges to form 3 unique blanks, and then I'll joint those and again join them together. I've given the glue 30 minutes to set up. I'm going to joint one side of this blank, one side of this blank, and both sides of this blank, and then we'll get the 3 of them glued together. I want to go ahead and square up one side of this blank, and what that'll let me do is lay it flat against this fence, and then I can take the fence and set it for whatever angle I want and cut some nice slices off of this blank. I've advanced the blank into the blade, and using a piece of painter's tape, I just made a reference mark. I want to cut each of my pieces roughly the same thickness. It doesn't have to be perfect, but this will just get me close. Here's a quick shot of the blank. Now what we want to do is shuffle the sections. I may do a little bit of tweaking, sliding some of the sections up or down to try to get rid of some of these voids. But at this point, I'm ready to go ahead and glue all of these sections together. I really like how this blank is turning out. I'm going to get the tight bond out, get all of these sections glued together, and then when this blank is dry, I'm going to come back and cut the diagonal in the opposite direction, and then we'll mix the pieces up once again. The glue completely dried on my blank, and I went ahead and cut diagonals in the opposite direction. Time now to mix them up and start gluing them back together. My glue up is complete, and I'm ready to start cutting pin blanks. You can see right here, this is the deepest point into the blank, so I'm going to take that over to the blade. We're going to square that up, and then on this side of the saw, I've got a piece of tape set exactly 3/4 of an inch from the blade. Now, you don't have to be perfect, but we'll continue to slide this to the left, lining up the square edge with this tape and knocking off 3/4 inch blanks. I've got some truly incredible looking blanks here. What I'm going to do is head over to the bandsaw and get them all cut to length. I have my blank cutting jig set up to cut a blank about 1/8 of an inch longer than the tube. That'll allow me to nicely center the tube and square both ends of each and every blank. My chaos blank is finished. I even went ahead and turned a pin out of one of them. Take a look at that. Isn't that beautiful? You have no idea what the pattern's going to be. Every one of these is going to be uniquely different and just absolutely stunning when turned. Every one of them, you might notice the brass tubes, has been tubed and has been squared and is literally ready to go to the lathe immediately. I'd like to thank you guys for joining me in the shop. I want you to know that you are always welcome in my shop. Come back and see me again real soon, and have a great evening.